What's up, everybody? It's your boy Name here. Welcome back to the Hoop Report, Man Women's Basketball Podcast, episode number 58. Really different, but I think I like it. Obviously, we're continuing our mini-series previewing every single quadrant going into the national tournament opening rounds this Friday and Saturday, and kind of moving forward after that. Obviously, we've already done the Naismith quad, so if you guys wanted to see that one, make sure to go back over to our YouTube and check that one out, and then come back over here and finish up the Cramer quadrant. We're going to be doing the Cramer quadrant today. Obviously, like we did with the Naismith, I gave it a little personality, gave it a little name. I think it actually might be the one I'm most proud of so far. And transparent to here, I'm recording this on Sunday. I have gotten through, obviously, the first two. I'm halfway through the third quad. So far, it does feel like the Cramer quadrant I hit on the nail, in my opinion. But we'll see. I'll go through and let you guys kind of decide that as well. Now, the other part of it, too, is on the brackets that I'm about to post or that I'm about to show here, and I'm sure by now then in the Naismith one we obviously I've posted the full one. I'm going to show you not just my predictions for the first round, but the entire quadrant here on the Cramer. We're going to kind of get right into it with that. So this is the Cramer quadrant. I've nicknamed it, as you can see at the top right, the Tempo quad, because I do believe tempo, pace is going to be a big thing in this one. Dordt, Simpson, Rocky Mountain, Southern Oregon, MidAmerica, Nazarene, St. Mary, MACU, Olivet, Nazarene, Corban, Texas A&M, San Antonio, Friends, Hastings, St. Francis, Brescia, College of Idaho, and then Briar Cliff. You see who I have winning in each respective game. Dordt, Southern Oregon, MidAmerica, Nazarene, Olivet, Nazarene, Corban, Hastings, St. Francis, College of Idaho. And coming out of this quad, I do have the Dordt defenders after they may beat Hastings in the final matchup of the quad. So we'll get right into it. The Tempo quad. Why did I do Tempo quad? Well, it feels like the speed of this region is going to be key. It's going to be very, very, very key. And not just like scoring, but defensive speed, offensive flow speed, some details in terms of like speed to loose balls, 50-50 balls, stuff like that. That's what I'm trying to talk about. Speed as a whole, not just scoring the ball, not just getting out in transition, but as a whole, different types of speed in this one. Dordt versus Simpson. I've got Dordt in that one. Obviously, I do believe the Dordt defenders are these arguably really, really good chance at a three-peating. Like, I mean a really good chance. They have a very favorable quad. I do think they are the favorites to get out of this quad. There are some teams in there that I'm a little worried about if they do run into them, but those teams got to go through some other teams that I think are going to be tough for them. So I do believe the Dordt defenders come away with the victory. Like I said on Monday's episode, I don't think there's a 116 matchup that I'm really concerned about this year. We'll see what happens, but I don't believe there's a 116 that I'm very concerned about moving into this Friday and Saturday. First game we're going to deep dive into, Rocky Mountain versus Southern Oregon. The tempo that I'm looking at, open court versus half court. What I mean by that, Rocky Mountain they've been hard to figure out this year, and so have Southern Oregon to some degree. You know, they've had some interesting games, they've had some interesting losses, some interesting wins. You know, for Rocky Mountain, they're a 20-9 so they're definitely a national tournament team in terms of record. They've beaten both Montana Western and Montana Tech 2 months ago. They were rolling as like a number 1 seed, dark horse, maybe in the Frontier, and we're like, okay, the Bears are coming together. But then they go into the Frontier tournament. They had a 5-game winning streak, including a 20-point win versus the same team they lost to in the first round of the tournament in MACU Northern, but then they lose by 8. So it's like they're kind of up and down. They've had some, obviously there were times in the year early on where, you know, they had some tough losses, getting upset by a few different teams. But again, like I said, then they turn it around and they have a chance to be in the number 1 seed going into pretty much the end of the regular season, to be honest with you guys. So it was kind of an interesting team to figure out. I always thought they were a national tournament team. I just didn't know. I kind of thought they might have been even a higher seed, to be honest with you guys. For Southern Oregon, kind of the same thing, though. You know, they started the season off a little bit interesting, a little bit maybe not by their standards, and again, their standards are very high, but they were another one that I was kind of interested in throughout the season of the highs and lows. Now, to be fair, that's more Cascade than anything. A lot of those Cascade teams, they were up and down because of just how competitive the conference was this year. But you look at Southern Oregon, they're on a 3-game skid where they played Eastern Oregon, LC State, and College of Idaho. Tough, you know, obviously a tough stretch there. But there's also the team that beat or that swept versus Corban this year and handed Eastern Oregon their first loss of the season. So there's a lot of similarities in these two teams where you don't really know who's going to show up on a consistent night. But at the same time, if they do find it where that specific team does show up because every single night in a row, now that team looks like they're going to really turn a corner here and be aggressive and be what they are and what they can be. Now, getting into kind of the inside-outside game, because that's what I really mean by half-court, open court. I believe the Rocky Mountain is going to thrive in the half-court situation. Why? They have a significant size advantage over Southern Oregon. Southern Oregon, on the other hand, they have a significant speed advantage, in my opinion, in the open court, right? So when you look at this, the Bears are averaging 72 points per game on 8 threes, which only means 24 out of the 72 are from beyond the arc. They also have 10 from the free throw line. So 33 points from the mid-range paint area on average, right? The Raiders are averaging 66 points per game on 8 threes as well, 10 free throws, which leaves the rest at 32. So from a numbers standpoint, both teams are getting about the same amount of shots from mid-range, from inside the paint, stuff like that. You know, they're pretty average there, right? They're pretty together. Now, the Bears have a true paint presence, though. And it's a few players in it, and I'll get to those players in my key players to watch. But the first one that comes to mind, and I'm sure anybody that's a Bears fan knows where I'm going with this, Isabella Hagam. She's averaging 14 and 11 on the season as a 6'5" post player, legit post player. The tallest player on Southern Oregon, who I believe will match up with her throughout the game, is probably going to be Lydia Traore, who is 6'2". Not bad. But then they've also got another post player in Rocky Mountain that is going to be a problem, that is also standing above 6 foot. So they are going to have a clear advantage on the post-ups, the high post, the short corner area, that kind of stuff. That is going to be a big piece of this game. For Lydia, she's averaging about 5 rebounds per game. So she is going to be in charge of trying to just control the rebound battle. I do not believe, and before I go into it, I want to say here, I do not believe that Southern Oregon is going to win the rebound battle. I don't. However, if they can keep it within less than 10, so they can lose the rebound battle, that's fine. I do believe rebounds are important. I do believe rebounds, you need to control the rebounds to win. But not every rebound battle is the same. What I mean by that is, if I'm a team that can manage within, let's say I'm a team like Southern Oregon who speed is my name. Speed is the name of the game for me. You know, I got a really good shooting team. I got a really fast guard. I got a really good transition game. I got all this kind of stuff, right? I might not be able to win the rebound battle if I keep it within, 5 to 6, 5 to 7. Now we're looking at a situation where they are not going to really be impacted that much by the rebounds. Now, I'm not saying the rebounds might still not come back to hurt them. Timely rebounds are a thing. But if you're able to fight, if you're able to keep the rebound battles within a respectable margin, as a small team, that's fine. That's fine. Now we're able to minimize those type of things. Now, that does go with you making sure you're taking care of the ball. Maybe you're forcing some turnovers your own way to be able to get out in transition. So it's not just, hey, if you keep it within 5 to 7, you're going to be fine. No, but I don't think the rebound battle will be that important if they could keep it under a 10 rebound margin. If they're getting every rebound at 15 plus, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. And I don't believe they're going to win the rebound battle. Now, if they do, hats off to Southern Oregon. That is a very impressive thing to do, especially against a team that, again, stylistically, I wonder if this matchup really favors Southern Oregon. But going back to the game, Isabella's also leading the team in assists at 95, showing that, again, her impact on the offense side of the ball is going to be felt almost every single possession. Again, I've seen a few Bears games this season. They were at the beginning of the year, obviously, but I've seen a few Bears games this season, and she was a consistent source of offensive flow, whether it's playing through her because she's got a mismatch or letting her be a playmaker for her team, getting offensive rebounds for her team, whatever the case is. She's always stretched the floor as well, so she's matchup nightmare for a lot of teams in the frontier and across the country. They also have Brianna Linus, who's that other 6 foot post player that I was talking about. She's 6'1". She's also averaging 15 and 6 on any given night. So they've got 2 players standing above 6 feet that combined are putting up about 29 and 17 on any given night. That's going to be a problem, especially that 17 rebounds. Right, you got to be able to, if you're Southern Oregon, you have to have a game rebound mentality. You don't have to win the rebound battle, but you got to keep it respectable. You cannot get out rebounded by 15, 20, whatever the case is, because you will lose that game in a blowout fashion. Now, on the flip side of that, the reason I say the open court game, I talked about it a few times here on the pod. I've watched some Southern Oregon games this year, and there is one name that I heard constantly, I saw constantly. I kept telling people that I was with watching the game, like, this girl is fast. Keely Wright, right? And I'm going to segue right into the key players matchup because I have her for Southern Oregon and I've got Paige Watson for Rocky Mountain. I know I just talked about all the post players and all that kind of stuff, whatever, for Rocky Mountain. It's going to be a guard game. And what I mean by that is, yes, I'm looking at a matchup, and it's interesting to say I'm looking at the matchup between a 20-point scorer in Paige Watson, because that's what she is, and a 5-point per game scorer in Keely Wright. But it's a bigger factor in how the point guards themselves, how they are floor generals for their respective teams. Paige is the only guard that's really leading Rocky Mountain in terms of scoring the ball, and obviously she's leading them in scoring, but she's the only guard that's really in that top 3, top 4, top 5 mix, right? So she is going to be in charge of getting these post players the ball, getting them touches, getting them in the spots that they want the ball at. Keely, on the other hand, she's going to be in charge of pushing the pace. Whichever guard does a better job at controlling the pace of the game will give their team the best chance to win. If Keely's able to get out in the transition game, get out and run, make or miss, we're pushing down the ball down their throats, trying to get something quick, trying to score as quick as possible. Now that favors Southern Oregon. Now the team plays how they want to play. But if Paige controls the game of slowing it down, not pushing unless they want to push, not pushing unless they got a clean layup, we're running sets, we're getting the ball in the post, we're getting the ball, short corner, all that kind of stuff. Now Southern Oregon is going to have to try and figure out how to play in a slower style game, because and a lot of this comes down to be honest with you guys, scoring the ball. You can't run if you can't get stops, and you can't walk the ball up the court, or you can't run if you can't get stops. And if you can't get stops, you cannot get in the transition game like that, right? At the same time, if you're Rocky Mountain, if you score, you don't have to worry about the transition game of Southern Oregon. You got to worry about Keely pushing the ball down the court every single time, right? So I think it's going to be a situation where Keely Wright, one of maybe the fastest guards in the country with the ball in her hand, is going to be playing against a team that is going to be playing against a point guard who very, very much a 3-level scorer, can go out there, facilitate, score the ball, whatever you need to do. But I'm looking at the facilitating part of her game in this game, because she's going to be in charge of getting Isabella the ball, Brianna the ball, anybody else on that Rocky team, even from the perimeter, the guards as well. How is that going to manifest? Because if it turns into a point guard or a backcourt battle, I do believe that the Southern Oregon team has the better backcourt between her and also Bridget McIntyre, who she's kind of an X factor for me, because she has a 30-point performance like she's had multiple times this year. If she has a night where she just can't miss from a 3-point line, which she's had multiple times this year, it's going to be a little bit different, because I'm training 3s for 2s. Again, I know the post players for Rocky Mountain can spread the floor, can stretch the floor, but it's a little bit different. Bridget's a little bit of a different shooter when we're talking about that, right? Again, Paige is a 3-level scorer, and she is going to be a very much important part from that side of things. But I truly believe that Southern Oregon is going to control the pace of this game a lot better. And if anything, it might put a little bit of extra pressure on Rocky Mountain, because they realize if we don't get these buckets, now that it's transition going the other way, now that we're pushing the ball down the court. Right, I am going Southern Oregon in this one, but only if these two things happen. The rebound battle stays within the 10 or so rebounds, either way, win or lose. And if Keely Wright does have a lot of an impact, not scoring, she can go for 0 points. That's what I'm talking about. But if I'm watching this game and I feel like there's just every single time on the court, Keely's either with the ball or with the pass, getting the ball across half court. That's what I really mean. When I say playing fast, I'm not just talking about, and I'm mentioning like scoring quick, all that kind of stuff. It's more so, how fast can you get the ball across half court? If I get the ball across half court quickly, that means that I like to play fast. That's all you're trying to do, especially in the shot clock part of, in the level where you're playing with the shot clock. The faster you get across half court, the more time you have to be able to run your sets, the more time you have to be able to make the defense have to work, right? If I get across with 20 seconds left, now they got to play for 20 seconds of defense. But if I get across with 25 seconds left, it's an extra 5 seconds. That could be the difference between a quick bucket, a clean bucket, maybe an extra opportunity, whatever the case is. So I'm going Southern Oregon in this one, but I do believe it's going to be a very much styles make spice type of game here between the Bears and the Raiders. MidAmerica Nazarene versus St. Mary, Hart versus KCAC matchup here. They've actually played a few times this year in terms of conference. The depth is the tempo I'm looking at. How deep can these teams go in terms of their rotation going into the later parts of the game? For MNU, they've been a buzzsaw since the last time they lost, and that was to Dordt. They've been on a 17-game winning streak. They are just rolling. And obviously, it was capped with the Hart regular season and tournament championships. St. Mary, since their last loss, which was to Evangel, since their last loss before the playoffs, they lost to Evangel, ran off 6 straight wins that ended in the semifinals to Evangel, I believe it was. So really, in the past 8 to 9 games, the only team that really had their number is Evangel, because they had 2 of those 2 losses. So not anything to really worry about if you're talking about St. Mary, because Evangel has been the best team in the KCAC all year, and we'll get to them once we get to their quad. In terms of the game notes, right, for MidAmerica Nazarene, again, after that back-to-back loss, they lost to Dordt the second game. I can't remember who that first time was, because I know it wasn't Grandview. Grandview had already happened. I can't remember who that first loss was in that back-to-back, but I know the second loss was to Dordt. Again, they ran off 17 in a row, sweeping the Heart. They're averaging 71 points per game. They're holding opponents at 50 points per game, and they're forcing 17 turnovers from their opponents. So they are just on a different level right now in terms of everything that they need to do to be playing at a national tournament level. 3 double-figure scores in Cameron Green, Mary Lucret, and Zaylee Reith, plus an extra 2 who are at 9.7 each in Aubrey Rogers and Grace Carlson. MidAmerica Nazarene is checking every single box. You need a box? Check. You have a check. I don't care if you come up with the most random box you need to check. They have it checked. I promise you they do. For St. Mary's, the Spire, they've had a really good season, but their slow starts what worry me. There's a lot of times this year where watching them and covering the KCAC a little more in depth, I've been wondering, like, there was a time where I thought they were the hottest offense in the KCAC because they were just on a different level for about 5 or so games. But I've also watched some games where, you know, they're kind of letting teams hang around. They're kind of not putting their foot on the gas early. And, you know, there's some games that I remember vividly hosting Kansas Westland. They kind of let them hang around for the entire 3 quarters or so. They eventually turned up in the second half, but I was worried about that. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of these games where I just feel like defensively, especially, the slow starts are going to be really what hurts MidAmerica Nazarene. What hurts St. Mary's, excuse me. It's the defense of St. Mary's, because for retrospect, they're allowing the same number of points that MidAmerica Nazarene is averaging right now. They're allowing 70 points per game. That's what MidAmerica Nazarene is averaging on this winning streak and on the season, really, for the entire campaign that they've put together here in 25-26. So there's just not a really, this is a tough draw for St. Mary. It really was. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be a depth thing, because I'm looking at St. Mary's defense versus MidAmerica Nazarene's defense. And I'm going MidAmerica Nazarene's defense because I just trust that defense a little bit more. If you're the Spire, they're averaging more points than MidAmerica Nazarene in terms of offense, 74-70. Like, they're actually putting the ball in the basket a lot more than they are. But it's going to be on the defense side of the ball. Who can slow down the other opponent's offense more? Who can do it for longer stretches of time? However you want to word it, that's what's going to come down to. You know, the Spire, they're averaging 61 opponents' points per game on the 6-game winning streak, while MidAmerica Nazarene's has it at 53 in that same window. There's a significant difference, almost a 10-point difference, in terms of what their defenses are doing respectively against their opponents. So you can't overlook that. I think a 10-point defensive difference, when you're not, there's a lot of other things that are pretty identical in terms of offense. I think it's going to be that is the calling card. Whoever can do that, can make the other team's offense be more uncomfortable, walks away with this game probably in that 10-point, margin. If the Spire can do that, if they can win on holding them to one shot only, MidAmerica Nazarene, making them uncomfortable every single time down the court, hey, you give yourself a chance. But I just feel like the Pioneers are too good right now. They're having a really, really good, maybe an underrated run here. You're talking about 17 games going into the tournament, which means you would have to get close to 30 wins in a row to get that national tournament championship, to that red banner. So, and I'll be honest with y'all, there's a world the Pioneers have a chance. They really, really do. They really do. So I'm going with the Pioneers in this one, but it's really because of the defense that they've been able to put together for the last 6 games and definitely for the last 17 games. Now we're going to MACU versus Olivet Nazarene. The tempo it's pretty self-explanatory. Points. It's points. It is points. If I ever talk about the Tigers of Olivet Nazarene, I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're ranked. I don't care anything about. All I'm looking at is the points. How many points are you averaging? Because you need to put up buckets against the Tigers. MACU is averaging 70 points a night. They've crossed 79 times this season, 86 times, and their season high is 86. Great job. Great offense, one of the best offenses in the country, I put them up there with anybody. The Tigers, though. Oh, the Tigers. The Tigers have gone under 80 once this whole season. And they've crossed 110 times. They get buckets, y'all, and they play at a fast pace. They could be, honestly, a dark horse in this region. And I talked about it in the last episode. I haven't fully gone through everybody. That's why the Friday episode that we're going to post here is going to be strictly on, after I've gone through everything and I have all the notes and I've got all this stuff, I can pick, all right, who's a dark horse into this region, or who's a Cinderella team that can make a nice little run at it. Olivet Nazarene's always been a team in the back of my back pocket because of what they do offensively. They force you to have to play this style. They're going to, get up a lot of threes, get up a lot of shots, a lot of quick shots. They're going to do that. So they always got a puncher's chance to make a deep run at it. Because if they get hot from the 3-point line for a couple games, now you're looking at it like, dang, can we really can we match this? Can we go blow for blow, shot for shot, maybe for a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half? But the rest of the game, it's a lot. It's a lot. So it's really what it comes down to. That's straightforward a game as we're going to have in the opening round. Can MACU's offense go shot for shot with Olivet Nazarenes? The Tigers are averaging at 84 field goal attempts per game, 39 3-point attempts per game, and even are putting up 22 free throw attempts per game. MACU needs to not make it a track meet. They got to understand, no matter how enticing it might look, you have to play deep into the shot clock every single time now. Do not let the Tigers get out and run in transition. If you do, it is going to be a cross-country track meet style of basketball. And I'm not meaning we're running up and down. I mean that the quickness, the speed of the game is going to be too much. I saw them play in the Chicagoland Championship game, and it is noticeable. It is noticeable. And what teams tend to do is, and again, it also goes on defense because they're going to press you. The Tigers are going to press you full game, 94 feet. So that's a done deal. But what the teams that they play against try and do is they try to outrun them. They try to, hey, if someone's open down the court, I'm throwing it. No, you cannot do that because now you're not taking care of the ball. You're hoping that they knock out of bounds because if not, they're going the other way. Now it's 3-on-2. You cannot let them do that every single time. You cannot let them get transition buckets like that. You have to, if the Tigers are going to get 100 points against MACU, they have to do it in the half court. They got to execute the heck out of their playbook. They got to execute to a T to get every single time down. You cannot let them get kick out threes off offensive rebounds. You cannot let them get transition looks in the open court. You have to be able to make them score in the half court every single time down. You do that, you give yourself a really good chance. Really good chance. For my key players matchup, it's a turnover battle, y'all. Like I just said, the turnover battle. If MACU is going to try and outgun ONU, they're going to get blown out. They're going to get blown out. You cannot do that because it's going to lead to you having more turnovers than ONU. You cannot out-Tiger the Tigers. It's not going to work. You know what I'm saying? You have to play at your speed. Now, MACU does play fast, and I'm not saying that they don't. And that is their style. And if they're going to play, do what got you to the dance, right? But you got to adjust a little bit. Instead of playing with two-step, you might have to go with a little side shuffle. It's just what it is. You cannot go into it strictly saying, hey, this is how we're going to play, and we're going to play at the best of our abilities. Sometimes that works, but I don't think it's going to work this one. I don't think it can work. And the underlying factor in all of this, if the Tigers go cold, they go cold. You know what I mean? There could come a point where they just, hey, we couldn't buy a bucket. And that's just going to be the name of the game. So that's also a part of it. But you have to understand how important the rebound battle is going to be for this game. And for any team that plays against the Tigers. You know what I mean? They're turning the ball over 16 times, the Tigers. They're forcing their opponents into double that. 32 turnovers per game. That's an extra, if I do just free throws, it's extra 32 points. 32 points. You can't. You got to control the rebound battle, the turnover battle, because if you don't, it is giving them free reign to just go out there and play what they want to do and do what they want to do. Now I'm going over to Corban, Texas A&M, San Antonio. The Tempo, 3-point line. That's what I'm looking at here. The 3-point line here. The Jags, they're 22 3-point attempts per game this season at about 27.3%. Corban is at 28 on 34, almost 35%. So more attempts and better percentage, right? The Jags finished the conference part of their season going 5-1, and that only one loss was in the Red River Finals against LSU Shreveport, who they have beaten once before this season. in that stretch, they're shooting 26% from the three-point line on about 21 attempts. First game, they only shot 14. The last game, they shot 33. Right, so like they've been all over the place kind of in terms of what they're getting from that three-point line. The Warriors finished their conference run 7-game winning streak, including the Cascade Championship, which in this day and age is very, very impressive for what the Cascade was able to do this year, for you to be the regular season, co-regular season, and the tournament champions. They're attempting 27 shots and shooting 31% from the three-point line. It's going to come down to just that. From a full offensive look, both teams are averaging about the same. 65 attempts from the field, that they're putting up almost the same number of points. Like, they are pretty identical from a totality standpoint. But when you have a significant difference in terms of the three-point line, that is what's going to come down. That is what's going to come down to. Who can shoot the ball better? And I know the Jags aren't necessarily like a great three-point shooting team. I don't expect them to come into this game because Corban does shoot the ball very well. Oh, we got to go out there and, start gunning. No. What it more so means is, can you be more efficient from the other parts of your game to compensate for the three-point line? I do believe the Jags will lose the three-point battle in this game. I believe that. I don't see them out shooting Corban. It doesn't make sense to me. But they can be more efficient from the free throw line. They can be more efficient from the mid-range paint area. They can get more shots in transition. Like, they can do other things to compensate for that. But you can't trade 3 for 2. You got to also be able to force Corban into some tough twos, some tough threes, even if you have to, because you can't let them get clean looks and let them get hot from the three-point line. The underlying offensive stat that may go in favor of the Jags is really the free throw battle, because Corban's not bad, but I just feel like Texas A&M San Antonio makes more of an emphasis to put pressure on the rim, put pressure on the paint, put pressure on the referees to blow their whistle, right? You look at the numbers, Jags are getting to the line about 24 times a game and are making about 18. So they're doing a really good job of it. And in that same 6-game stretch, they shot over 40 free throws 2 times, over 30 free throws 2 times as well. So 4 out of the 6 games that they've played in the past week and a half or so, they've shot over 30 free throws. They've shot 30 or more free throws, I should say. That's not a fluke. That is you as a staff and you as a player and as a team making a conscious effort, like, hey, we are going to be aggressive downhill. We are going to make the defense get into disadvantaged situations. We're going to play with our ball fakes, play with our pass fakes, all of these different type of things to make us have extra free throw attempts. Now we're scoring with the clock stopped. We're getting to the line, getting some, we all here as shooters, or as players, honestly, you just want to see the ball go in. So what do you always do? Hey, get to the line first. Get a couple free throws, get the form right, get the mechanics in order. Now watch you hit that three-point line. Watch you hit that jumper next time down, right? So I think the free throw line is going to be also something to keep an eye on. With that being said, though, it's a full effect. Like I mentioned, Corban does have a good night from a three-point line, which I do believe they will. 3s are worth more than 2s, and 3s are worth more than 1s, right? So the Jags have to have a better collective offensive night from different parts of the game. Corban really only, I believe, has to have one good offensive stat in their favor, and that's a three-point line. And they do that on a regular basis. So that's why I'm going to go with the Warriors in this one. Friends versus Hastings, St. Francis versus Brescia, and then College of Idaho versus Briar to round out the Cramer quad. Friends versus Hastings, one of our only 2 rematches of the opening round from late October, early November. The tempo, I just talked about it with the other game, free throws. These 2 teams met, like I mentioned, early November, in a double overtime classic, a thriller, where Friends won by 2, 104-102. The game notes for this one: the Falcons are coming in 4-1 in the last 5 games. That one loss being in overtime to a red-hot Tabor Blue Jays team that, really would love to see them in the tournament, but I do believe, they not have a good enough resume to get in. I understood why they didn't get in. They're averaging 77 points per game in that stretch, and taking away that Blue Jays game, because I do believe that was more of a Blue Jays game than the Falcons. I just think the Blue Jays played better that game. They were the better team. Taking that game away, they're averaging 86 points per game. Either way, they're averaging about 70. They're averaging about 76 on the season. So, however you want to look at it, that is their goal. They're between 75 and 80 points per game, right? We can safely say that. For the Broncos, talked about it a couple weeks ago, you could have made an argument they were the hottest team in the country last month. Let me tell y'all their February real quick. They went 6-1. They averaged 90 exactly on the dot, with only 1 game under 70. It was 68, by the way. So they barely did that. They're averaging 88.6 points per game right now as a team. They have really turned a corner offensively, y'all. They look like the Broncos from last year. They do. The speed that they're playing at, the intensity that they're playing at, I like me some Broncos, y'all. I'm not going to lie. Both teams have similar splits in terms of, flirting with 20 assists per game as a team. The tempo stat that really does make things interesting is the free throws. Because when you look at it, there is a significant difference between these two teams. Friends and Hastings are averaging almost the same number of attempts, 18 attempts per game. Hastings is 76% from the line. Friends is 65. Not even round up and say 66. That is a 10% percentage point difference. In the free throw line, that ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work. Friends has to get that above 70, and not just this game, every game. Every game. You cannot shoot under 70 multiple times in the national tournament and expect to make a deep playoff run. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You're looking at a situation where Friends are averaging 12 free throws made and Hastings are averaging 14 made. Again, man, 22. We're talking about the national tournament, y'all. 2 points. That's a possession. It's a possession game at this point. For the next 2 weeks, I want to be exact when I say this. Games start on the 13th. They end on the 24th. That's a week and 4 days. So for the next 11 days, every single game you play is a possession game. There may be a few blowouts in the opening rounds. Maybe a few in the second round. But I promise you, the blowouts are only going to get less and less common as you get deeper and deeper into the tournament. And you know what will become more and more common? Losing by 2 possessions, 3 possessions, 1 possession, 4 possessions late. It is a possession game. That's what I look at here. I don't see 2 points. I see 1 possession. Can you get that 1 possession? And sometimes the possession that you lose is at the line. Perfect example. Coaches hate it the most. When you're playing defense for 29 seconds and someone throws their hand in there, gets a foul call, bails out the opponent's offense, now they get to the line. If you make those 2 free throws, you won that possession. But if you don't, you lost that possession. Because those are 2 free throws you were not supposed to get because you were bad offensive possession, whatever the case is. You weren't supposed to get it. You're blessed with it, and you don't do anything with it. All right? So it's a possession battle. That's what I'm looking at here. That's what I'm looking at. For looking at the rematch side of things, because obviously these two teams did play before. In their first meeting, Friends went 14 for 25 from the line, while Hastings went 17 of 26. Now remember, Friends did win that game. And what was it? A possession game by 2. Just wanted to point that back out there. Just want to throw that back out there to you guys. Now, Friends had more threes, 1 more 3 than Hastings. But you also see a similarity between these two teams and how the free throws can be the deciding factor. If Friends doesn't have that 1 more 3, that 1 possession, I think, you're losing the game by 1. It's not, it's one of those things where the numbers don't lie and my eyes do not lie. They do not deceive me. Now, remember, Friends are playing a lot better. They're led by Lauren McIver, and I'm going to get to that in a moment here. As a matter of fact, we'll get right into it because that's my player matchup for the Friends side of things, Lauren McIver, and for the Hastings side, I'm looking at Bailey Kissinger. In the first game, Lauren went for 31 points, season high. She's done that 2 times, by the way. 7 rebounds, 6 assists, plus 3 blocks and 4 steals. She has elevated her game, if you haven't followed the KCAC side of our coverage this year, to another level. The girl she wasn't a player of the year on the KCAC, but she had a seat at the table, y'all. And a legitimate seat. She might have been second chair. On the other side, you're talking about Lauren. For Bailey, she had 22 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists, 4 steals. So both ladies, they ready for this one. Lauren, like I said, she's elevated her game since the last time that they played. She's become the full engine for this Friends offense and defense, honestly. But Bailey has a lot of other weapons around her. And I feel like, in a game where you're talking about possessions, and I'm actually going to get a little bit of a soapbox here because I'm a firm believer, once you get to the tournament, conference or national, it's about letting your best players be your best players. You have to live and die with that. If I'm losing this game, it's because you made the decision to do this, to do that, whatever. And I live with that decision every single time. In a game where I'm talking about a possession battle, like I feel like this game will come down to the possession. Maybe we have extra basketball. I'm looking at these two ladies because you got to have your best players be the best player on the court. If I'm friends, I'm winning or losing with Lauren McIver having the ball. And if I'm Hastings, I'm winning or losing with Bailey Kissinger having the ball. You cannot afford to not win your individual matchup in this aspect. Again, there's other parts of the game where you're like, oh, what about this, about that? And I get that. But when we get down to the last 2 minutes, and it's a 1-point game or a 1-possession game, we know these two ladies are going to have the balls in their hand. Now, maybe they don't shoot it. Again, both of them are really good playmakers. You try and get the ball. What are you going to do? You're probably going to double them. Any ball string, double them. Get the ball out their hands. Cool, but what decision do they make? You can try and double them to make them pass the ball. What if they split it? What if they decide, no, I'm taking this shot myself? I don't think they're doing it from a selfish thing. I do not believe either one of these ladies are selfish. But I can say, and I'm sure they know it, I'm taking the shot. We're talking about 31 points and 22 points. We're talking about near triple doubles for both of them. Double doubles are the common. So the winner of this individual matchup, if it stays close, if it's a blowout, okay, we can talk about that. But if it's a close game, which I do expect it to be, whoever wins this individual matchup will be the one that wins this game. They'll lead their team to that win. So I'm going Hastings. Love me some Broncos. I feel like they've been just on a high all February long, and I think it's going to lead right into March. So I'm going with the Broncos, but I do believe 1-possession game, maybe even overtime. St. Francis versus Brescia. Not going to lie, y'all. I might have a hot take with this one because the rebounds are the tempo that I'm looking at here. The speed. How fast can you get to these rebounds? Brescia's coming into this one 7-2 in their last 9 games, with that second loss being in the River States Championship game to Rio Grande. St. Francis coming in 7-2 as well, but their 2 losses were to the same team, the Marion Knights in the Crossroads. Obviously, no shame in that. For the game notes, Cougars have been the second best team all year and the best conference this season. And I say best conference because the Crossroads did get 7 teams, the most of any conference in the national tournament this year. In the 7 wins they had last month, they won by at least 6 out of the 7 times. And the last game that they did win was the revenge game against Bethel, who almost upset them in overtime at Bethel. For the Bearcats, they had a much tighter February. Multiple games being under 9 points, but they were 2 where they too were the second best team in their respective conference. I do believe all year was Rio Grande and then Brescia. I believe that. But the rebound battle is what I'm looking at here, because that's the tempo stat that really is going to – it shocked me. I'm not going to lie. It shocked me. I'm looking at these numbers. Both teams average 73 points per game. Both shoot about 40, 30, 70 from splits. But one team has a 10-plus average rebound advantage than the other. And it's the Bearcats, y'all. The Bearcats are averaging 44 rebounds per game, while the Cougars are averaging 34. The Bearcats do a great job at holding teams to one shot only because they finish defensive possessions with rebounds. They're grabbing 33 defensive rebounds per game. On the other side of it, they give themselves 11 extra possessions per game, while St. Francis only does 8 against 3 rebounds. But those 3 points couldn't matter. Those 3 rebounds couldn't matter. They could matter in a close game. In Brescia's loss to IU Southeast, which was the one kind of blimp in their last few weeks here, they still grabbed 40 rebounds. The one other team in the Crossroads to beat St. Francis twice, which is Indiana Wesleyan. In those games, the Cougars got out-rebounded both times by a margin of -20. And I know what I still got a few more things to go through. And I know what I said. I know I'm going with the Cougars. I'm not going to lie, y'all. I might say it. I think I'm going Brescia. I might change it right here on the spot and update the graphics because I don't know. I don't know. Combining the 4 losses this season that St. Francis only has 4 losses. -29 rebound margin. -29 in your losses. That means that is a notice. Like, there's a correlation. I'm not going to say it's a relationship. I'm not going to go that hard. But there's a correlation, an association, if you will, with the rebound battles and losing for the Cougars. Now, 2 of those losses, Marion. It ain't just the rebounds with Marion. But Indiana Wesleyan, especially in the fall, it's different. And I know it was at home or at Indiana Wesleyan. I get that. But it's different. And I even saw St. Francis play against Southeastern, obviously. And Southeastern had them. The Cougars made some shots down the stretch, which was what kind of gave them the lead. But they had them. Like, there was a moment where I said, "Oh my God, St. Francis is about to get upset by Southeastern." The Cougars grabbed 40 rebounds 10 times this season. So they can rebound the ball. Like, they can't do it. The Bearcats did it 20 times. Double that. Again, there's ways to minimize the rebound battle. And I do believe the Cougars are the better team. I believe that. The key matchup I'm looking at are the Cougar 5, whatever 5 are out on the court, and Cassidy Morris and Jenna Crampy from Brescia. Why? The Cougars need to have a gang rebound mentality the entire 40 minutes. Because, for reference, Cassidy and Jenna are averaging a combined 16 rebounds. If you were to combine the rebound averages of the first 3 of the top 3 rebounders on St. Francis, they would be out rebounding the 2 of Cassidy and Jenna by only 2. And that's what me rounding up. By only 2. It goes to show you how much of a point of emphasis the Bearcats make on rebounding the ball. Again, I do believe the Cougars are the better team. I think they've got a lot more weapons at their disposal. But in an actual tournament, sometimes it comes down to matchups, y'all. And I'm going to do it. Give me the Bearcats for the upset. Probably, or up till now, I believe it'll be the biggest upset of the first round. And I cannot. It's funny because you talk about Southern Oregon and Rocky Mountain at the beginning of this episode, where the rebound battle is going to be an interesting thing here, right? But they're not, like, Southern Oregon's not getting everybody on average all season by that much, right? And they've played against some teams that have sizable advantages. Oregon Tech's got some size on them. Even Eastern Oregon, Eastern Oregon don't really got too much size on them. But they've played against teams who do have at least 1 or 2 rebounding people, like people that can really control the rebound department for their team. But the losing for Southern Oregon is not just rebounds. There's been other things that have caused it. And I know St. Frank's only lost 4 games, but are either of those 2 teams that they lost to, Marion or Indiana Wesleyan, better than Brescia? Not Marion, and Indiana Wesleyan, I probably wouldn't say that either. I think Indiana Wesleyan is better. So I do believe that St. Francis is losing to better competition. But even still, the stat that's making me say Brescia, that's making me go with the upset, clearly favors the underdog here. So I'm going with the Bearcats for that reason. I might be wrong. But something is telling me that the rebound battle is going to be a real player in this one. And I'll end it on this before we go to the last game here of College Idaho and Briar Cliff. Rebound is, yes, it's a skill. For those of you who don't think it is, it's a skill. Knowing when the ball is going to bounce, reading the shot, all that, it's a skill. But 10% skill. Rebounding is an effort thing. And what 44 rebounds is telling me from the Bearcats, they play with heart, they play with effort. Not saying St. Francis doesn't, because I know in this day and age, if you say something good about one person or one team, I'm not saying that. The Bearcats, the Cougars, again, second best team in the best conference this season in terms of NAIA women's basketball. You don't get to that by not playing with effort. And I've seen them my own 2 eyes. They play with effort. I just believe the Bearcats play with more effort. And right now, they are the underdogs. And Cinderella, they love some underdogs. So I'm going with the Bearcats in this one. We'll see. But I think the rebound battle is just too much for me not to go with them. I'm going to change the graphic there after we're done with this episode. College of Idaho versus Briar Cliff. Last game here. The tempo, defense. Briar Cliff has had an up and down season. It's their first season that they're going into the national tournament under 20 wins since 21-22 season. Right? They still have 19 wins. They're look at there. For the Yotes, they've been kind of the forgotten team of the Cascade this year because of everything that's been going on. It just feels like they haven't. Hand up, that's probably on me as well, not giving them a little bit more shine than I probably should have. At the beginning of the year, I was really interested on them and kind of just tapered off as the year's gone on. And so I definitely put up that's on me. I apologize. 20-win season before the national tournament and the Cascade playoffs. Like before that, they were already in 20 wins. Under 10 losses this season, only 8. They're gonna have under 10 losses this year because one more and you're done. So they're gonna have no more than 9 losses this season. So College of Idaho is a really good team, y'all. Looking at the game notes, the Chargers play a very fast-paced game, averaging 81 points per game, almost 70 field goal attempts, and 25 three-point attempts. They're coming in, however, on a little bit of a slump from February. You know, they went 2-4, including the first round loss to Concordia, which the Dogs accounted for half of their losses that month. They lost them twice. College of Idaho averaged just under all the same averages of Briar. You know, 71 points, 62 field goal attempts, 25 3-point attempts. Their February went 5-2, great wins over Southern Oregon and Oregon Tech, but the Owls got them back in the postseason opening round, obviously with the upset in the 4-5 matchup. Briar still averaging a normal points of 79 in those 6 games that they played last month, but the defense. That's the difference right now. The Chargers are allowing 72 points per game, and last month they allowed 79 points per game. Meanwhile, the Yotes allowed 56 points per game last month, and they held the teams to 58 on the season. So their defense is legit. It's legit, and they're going into it like normal. For Briar, you know, they haven't held an opponent under 70 since February 7th. It's over a month away, or over a month since then, right? And they have not held a national tournament team under 70 since November 2nd when they played against Grandview. And sometimes I'm going to throw those stats out there because one thing we have to always, you know, be transparent and honest about. Not every team you play in your conference, even the conference like the GPAC or the Cascade, will be a national tournament team. We get that. And sometimes, you know, schedules break right. And, you know, the last few games of the season, you're playing some of the teams that are at the bottom of the conference. So, you know, you guys are going to hear me say, especially as we go through these next few episodes and next few previews, you know, specifically national tournament teams. How do you do against those teams in the season? For the College of Idaho, the line is 60. Already off to a better start. They did that 5 out of the 7 times they played last month, holding an opponent under 60. 2 of those were national tournament teams. Y'all see where I'm going with this. The defense of College of Idaho is legit. Key players to watch here. Abby Lee and Brooklyn Hyman versus Kylie Waltermeyer. Defense versus offense in this one, with Abby Lee needing to anchor down the Chargers' defense from the inside, and then I need Brooklyn to anchor or set the tone, better said, from the perimeter. You know, she leads the team in steals. Abby leads the team in blocks. Those two have to be the catalyst for a defensive game for Briar. Meanwhile, for College of Idaho, it's offense. I have no issues with their defense. None. They could win this game on the strength of their defense alone. But when it's a defensive battle, it makes the offense more important for the team who typically doesn't win like that. I don't think College of Idaho wins with their offense. I think they win with their defense. So they have to have their leading scorer in Kylie be what she is. You know, she's averaging a solid 11 a night, but since February 7th, she's really upticked that because she's now on a current streak of 6 straight games with at least 10 points. That's a season high streak for her. Kylie ended those 3 games putting up 23, 20, and 19. So almost 3 straight 20-point games to end, you know, the conference part of the season and going to the national tournament. She's on a very, very, very good run right now. So I do believe College of Idaho, I'm going with them to win this game. You know, I do believe they're going to have a situation where their defense leaves them for 38 minutes. In the last 2 minutes, I need Kylie in the offense to come in and go with the knockout punch. I think that's how they do it. That's how they need to do it in this one. All right, we're going to recap everything that I said today. So we've got Dordt over Simpson, Southern Oregon with the upset over Rocky Mountain, MidAmerica Nazarene over St. Mary's, Olivet Nazarene over MACU in the upset, Corban over Texas A&M San Antonio. I've got Hastings over Friends. I've got Brescia. I know it says St. Francis, but I got Brescia over St. Francis just because of the rebounds. I can't go against it. And then I've got College of Idaho over Briar. To update the rest, because everything else obviously stays the same. The only difference that I will say is I do believe College of Idaho wins if it's Brescia. So College of Idaho would go to Hastings, but I still believe Hastings would beat College of Idaho, and it still would be Dordt versus Hastings in the finals of this quadrant. Again, this quadrant is the quadrant of tempo. Who can control the tempo, not just open court, half court like Rocky Mountain, Southern Oregon, but who can have more of a point of emphasis to get to these rebounds like Brescia and St. Francis? Who can control the tempo from a defense side of things, like the last game I just mentioned with College of Idaho and Briar. Who can do it from a standpoint of the tempo leading to free throws, extra opportunities, because I'm pushing the ball where I'm, you know, playing quick and fast in the half court. Now I'm making the defense have to rotate late, scramble situation, all that kind of stuff. There's different ways you can talk about tempo. The Cramer Quadrant, though, is all about tempo in those different ways. All right. I really do appreciate you guys. I do believe, like I said, this might be my favorite quadrant I've done so far. Very excited to see how it plays out. But that's going to do it for this episode of The Report. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch y'all tomorrow. Peace.